Hey, what's going on? Happy Tuesday here from Claibs Online. It is lunch with Claibs and Joe. Just a day late than usual. I'm Joe Roderick. He's Mike Claiborne down in Florida, where I came from yesterday. Claibs, about 14 hours of driving, 900 miles. Put it on that Toyota Highlander from Munganess Alton Toyota. And hey, it got me back here in one piece. Ended up hitting up 4 different Buc-ee's this past weekend. Have you ventured into one of those places yet?
No, I haven't. No, tell me about it.
It is. I mean, like a regular like Quick Trip, Casey's.
Yeah.
Okay, imagine a gas station that's inside of a Walmart. That's what it is. You walk in, and every time, I went to 4 different ones. I went to the one in Daytona Beach. I went to the one in St. Augustine. I went to one in Georgia. I think I went to 2 in Georgia. Claibs, every time I walked into one of these, you would have thought it was a Black Friday sale going on inside of there.
You know what? I think they're strategically located where as people travel and you travel with families or whatever, those places provide everything you need under the sun.
Everything.
And a lot of times you don't have to drag stuff with you. You can go to one of those places and just pick it up as you need it. And I would imagine when spring break breaks out and families are starting to travel, you're going to see those places overrun. They do a really nice job.
It was about as efficient as a Chick-fil-A too. As you're getting in and out of there, like you're grabbing your stuff, you're going checking out, boom, they're getting you out right away. There were a few times where I'd stop for gas or just park, and the thing's so big with so many different entrances that I forgot where I parked. Like you get in there and you get all turned around, and then I'm walking out and I'm like, shit, where's my car? And I'm
Let me ask you something.
Around.
Is there some discussion about them having one in the St. Louis area?
That is a Wally's.
Okay.
That is a Wally's. There's one of those up
Fenton, right?
On the way to Pontiac, Illinois. If you're driving up to Chicago, you go up 55. It's there off
right,
Pontiac.
Okay. I thought they were talking about building one in Fenton.
They are. They're building one in Fenton off of 55.
Right.
Out there by the soccer park.
It's perfect where, you got Six Flags, soccer park, everything else. So that works out fine for them. All right, we got a lot going on today, man. Where do you want to start?
Well, hey, you know what? I mean, I drove back yesterday, so Sunday I was at the Daytona 500. I know this isn't a NASCAR show. This isn't a NASCAR. We don't
it's what
talk
we want
much
it to be.
Auto
it's
racing,
what we want it to be.
But for the first time ever, I went to a NASCAR race. Went to the Daytona 500, the Super Bowl of auto racing, and it was something else. The crowd there was what I expected it to be. The atmosphere was pretty awesome. There were 160,000 people there, Claibs. And just walking in. So that's we walked. First of all, we get there and we walk around and just kind of take everything in. You see all the trucks, all the merchandise, everything on the outside, the free stuff, the sponsored stuff, all of that. And spent about 2-3 hours out there with plenty of stuff to do. And then walking in, and the first thing I like to do, this is any stadium, ballpark, anything. I like to walk in. I don't care where my seats are. I immediately want to go and just look at the field. I want to go take that field in and see what it is, especially when it's my first time going somewhere. And I was told that this was huge, that, Daytona International Speedway was big. And then you get out there and you see all of the trailers, all of the trucks, all of the RVs in the infield. You see all the stands and you just see everything there. And it's something else. It's something that's really hard to describe. And one of those things you have to see to believe.
No, I agree with you. I've been to Daytona, Indianapolis, even been to a Formula One race, and I've seen all 3 levels of auto racing. And it's something about Daytona and Indy when you see the mass of humanity. And I'll tell you another place like this, Kentucky Derby, because they'll do 140,000 also. And, we're so used to seeing a baseball or a football game, and maybe if it's a college game, it'll get a little over 100,000. This is nothing like it in the United States, where you have that many people, and the land that's needed to house all these people is incredible. And it's a place where I tell people, just when you thought you've seen it all, then go to one of these events, and then you would have checked every box as far as seeing everything you could ever imagine.
It surprises me, because they could easily fit another 50, 100,000 seats, because there are no seats on the back end. There are no seats back there by turn 2, by turn 3, by that back straightaway.
Right.
There's no seating back there. I mean, if you're sitting on the RVs and you're watching it in the back there, yeah, you could see all that. But you're watching, you have your vision. I mean, the track is 2.5 miles around. So, I mean, think of how far you're looking. We were right at turn 4. So when you're looking all the way at turn 2, I mean, you're looking at something that's almost a mile away that you're looking at and seeing.
You need a good pair of glasses. And one of the things I always tell people is this might be the only event that being close doesn't do you any good. You really kind of want to be elevated to be able to see the whole track. But I've sat close, and the only thing you hear is zoo, zoo, zoo. I mean, and they go by you so fast you don't appreciate what else is going on the track. And that's why I always tell people you don't have to be at the top, but you need to be mid-level so you can see on the other side of the track and see what drivers are doing as far as jockeying for position. I always like sit pit side because I think that's the most dynamic thing involved in auto racing, how quickly they can change in gas and whatever else they need to do. And I also say this, even for people who've never been to a race, I think watching NASCAR or Indy 500 or even Formula One, the technology that goes in and putting that event on TV is unlike any other sporting event we see in this country. The camera placement and all the information that's provided to you on a continuous basis is what I think makes it one of the great spectacles on TV. I think it's truly a TV event. And with every year they come up with something different, you really get a feel for it. So it's one of my favorite events. I really get into auto racing. And speaking of racing, that was a pretty good race. You had a lot of young guys on the tour now, and they still make a lot of amateur and rookie mistakes, and it pisses off a lot of these veteran drivers when they get caught up in some of the accidents that we saw on Sunday. But, it's a battle of the survival, man. I mean, just trying to get to the end. And I thought while the rookie won, I thought Bubba Wallace raced an interesting race because he started off 16th, and I think he dropped down as low as 22 or 23, and he ends up losing by a half a length of a car. Good race for him, but he was pissed off because he didn't get what he needed at the end. A little help from teammates because none of them were there. Car was a little banged up. But I think this is going to be a really interesting race season. The NASCAR is going to let them go, I think. I think we've seen how far they can push it. So I'm looking forward to it.
The winner was Austin Sindrick, a young kid who I think they said his grandfather used to own a team back in the day. He's been in racing his whole life. But as you mentioned, Bubba Wallace finishing very close second with missing his whole right fender. He I don't know if that would have made him any faster down the stretch or fast enough to win that race, but it was a fun atmosphere to be in. And then until about lap 190, there were 2 or 3 wrecks in the final 10 laps. So it was kind of like, okay, hey, here we go. Just a few minutes left. And then there was a wreck. You're like, okay, got to watch them all go around. You're like, all right, hey, 4 laps left. Here we go. Wreck. And you're like, like the final 2 minutes of a basketball game or a football game with all the timeouts and clock stoppages. Like that's what it felt like.
Takes a half hour. Yeah.
We got so close and then it just took forever for that. But I will say this too. The folks at Daytona, they've had 64 years to perfect it. Getting out of there, getting on the buses, getting back to the lots to get out of there, very fast and efficient. It was, I thought we would be there for well over an hour. We were back on the road in like 30 minutes after we left the place. So it was fun.
They hit the nail on the head about them being organized, getting that thing. Yeah, I remember I wasn't around when they did it, but they used to run that thing on the beach.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures of it where you'd go. I don't know how that worked, but the cars these days aren't going on the beach. You're not putting sand anywhere near those machines. Now this year, there is a NASCAR race coming up June 5th here in St. Louis. I didn't realize until this weekend. It's the actual guys. It's the top ones. This is a top NASCAR event. So you're going to see all the big names. You're going to see the Kyle Busch, the Kurt Busch, the Denny Hamlins. You're going to see all those guys racing over at the Worldwide Technology over the Gateway Speedway So
what is that? What is that date again?
June 5th. June 5th for that one. I don't know if are you in town or not for that?
We are playing the Chicago Cubs on that day in Chicago.
In Chicago. Okay.
Yeah.
So you will not be there for that race. Hopefully everything runs smoothly for them over there in Granite City when they run that. I think I would go to that. I mean, that's close enough. I would go to that. If I ever went to one of these big ones like Daytona or Talladega, I would need to go with a bunch of buddies, get an RV, and sit on the infield on top of the RV. I think that would be the next way I would want to take in a race like that and kind of just see it from that angle. But I'm good. Crossed it. Didn't know it was on my bucket list, but I wrote it on there and I crossed it off as soon as I did. So
all right,
that was that. There you go. There's your NASCAR coverage. You though, well, before we get into all the sports and everything else, this weekend, I was watching Fast Cars. You were hanging out around some big boats this past weekend.
You know, I've gone to this boat show. They had one in West Palm Beach that I've gone to before, and this year I went to the one in Miami, and I got two things. Boats are really expensive. As I was telling Randy Carricker, rowboats were going for $1.5 million, but the boats are fascinating. But the women, it is such a spectacle when it comes to talent. And I'm an admirer of talent. And they weren't all working. I know some people, what do you expect? They want to hang around millionaires. Yeah, that's true. But man, I'm not sure what I've seen beautiful women in my life. I don't think I've seen that many boats. And now catamarans are the hot thing these days. And everybody's selling catamarans. And one of the neat things, when you go on these boats that maybe take a tour and check it out, if you're invited, you have to take shoes off. They will not let you on the boat with your shoes on. So there's always these rows of shoes of people who would like take a tour of these boats. And Joe, they start off probably at $1.5 million, and you can probably get one for $100 million. There were probably a couple $100 million boats there. And but it's a spectacle. I mean, they got food and they got bars every 30 feet, it seems like. It's well thought out. We're going to have one here in West Palm Beach here in about another week or two, and I'm looking forward to that one.
So what do you see? You're just walking around. How long do you spend at a boat show?
You can spend 2-3 hours there at minimum. I mean, because they spread it out, because it was not only they had the catamarans in one section, they had the big cruisers in another, they had some of the fishing boats in another section. So you had to water taxi throughout Biscayne Bay. So, you'd have to hop on a water taxi just to be able to get to the next place where you wanted to take in something.
So when are we going to purchase the official Claibs online?
That's probably not going to happen.
Okay.
Only because I don't know if I'd have time to really enjoy it. And I don't know how anybody would have time to enjoy something like that. I mean, we know people who have boats who go out on the river, but man, they're not spending this kind of loot.
Yeah. I worked for one of the radio stations I worked at back in the day for about 3 weeks. He owned an RV and he was looking at buying a helicopter for the station too. You might be surprised to learn that station did not work out and was off the air quickly as they were unable to pay bills, and then ended
not
up
the first time
sell.
I've heard that.
Yeah, so that's it's shocking to hear, but yeah, he had an RV and wanted a helicopter. So.
Well, helicopters are pretty pricey as well, but I can get
get
mileage out of it. I know at one point, just to get flight time, you're talking about $400 an hour minimum. And if you didn't serve in the military to take lessons on your own, you better have some really deep pockets.
Yeah, I'm good just flying Southwest. I'll stick with them. Hey, we got NBA All-Star Game stuff to get into in just a bit. We will do that right after we hear from our friends at the Perfect K9.
My name is Jeremy Sindrick. I am one of the owners of Perfect K9.
Marcus Galmore, co-owner of Perfect K9.
What makes us different from other dog companies is there is no breed left behind. We stand by that 120%. We specialize in aggressive behavior modification. We don't turn away. We bring them in for a free evaluation to see if we can help the dog.
At Papa K9, we focus on the owners, educating the owners.
How do I get this dog to give me the behaviors that I'm asking for without the treats? So that's when me and Marcus come in. We train the dog, so when you take the dog home, you don't need the treats. The dog is doing it because you're asking it to.
After each training package, we go through a series of lessons. We keep going until the owner gets it.
We make sure that they go over the beatings with their dog, and that dog is listening before they leave here, but also we follow up when they get home. Is your pup listening to you here? If it's not, we one phone call away, we'll make a trip. We got the Paw Pick Mobile, where we go out to their homes and make sure their dog is okay.
We'd like to welcome on board the Pawfik K9 folks, and Claibs, they're working with your pups.
Yeah, mine I thought were lost causes. I have 2 dogs, and I thought they were lost causes. I got turned on by these guys, and I got to tell you something. They're doing so well. They even ready to do long math. They can do algebra. They almost can start a car. They've even learned how to lock themselves in the house, where it required a locksmith to come out and let them in. But anyway, what Jeremy and Marcus do, it's a phenomenal job. And if you're thinking about a dog, or if you have one, you're not sure what's going on, or you have one you want for your kid, I would start with these guys and let them take it and let them handle it. And by the time they're done with your dog, you will feel like this will be one of the great investments you've made, not only for your dog, but for your family. We all appreciate dogs if we own them. And I think when you deal with these guys, you'll see why I'm excited about them being part of what we do and what they can do for you.
Claibs, this past weekend, we saw the NBA All-Star Game weekend. I would say of the 4 major sports here in the U.S., the NBA All-Star Game weekend is always one of the most exciting when you look at all the events that are around it and the game itself, the way that the way it plays out each and every year. But I think it seems like we circle back to it every few years about the dunk contest kind of being overrated or time to move on from it. And it always seems to take a special talent to bring it back. And it seems like, again, this year, the dunk contest was a little less than expected.
Yeah. You know what? I think the dunk contest will always be part of the NBA All-Star Game. The history of that event is something that you can't overlook. The challenge this year was you had guys who were trying to do things that maybe either they didn't work on enough or maybe were more impossible to try. And maybe the way they approach it should be different too. I mean, guys getting 2 and 3 opportunities to make one dunk, and maybe that the format needs to change. But I was disappointed. Not too disappointed because I can't do what they do. Okay. And that's something that a handful of people in the world can do on that level. The problem I think we see these guys dunking a game. That's a whole lot different than what you see in that environment on a Saturday night where the world is watching. And I'm sure that the league will talk about it and talk to some players about it and maybe engage in some players that are more recognizable. I mean, many of those dunkers you really didn't know a great deal about. I mean, they're young guys, guys that you probably don't see on TV a great deal. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but I'm sure the NBA will get it figured out. You mentioned something. Their All-Star game is probably the most recognizable of the 4. Probably the one that draws the most attention from its veterans and from people who once played the game. And now this year, the 75th anniversary was in play. But with that said, you can always go to an NBA All-Star game, and I've been to a ton of them, and you'll always see the greats there for one reason or another. A lot of them just like being there. Some of them are paid to be there by sponsors, you name it, but they're there. Can't say that about the other sports with the same popularity that we see in the NBA. And granted, baseball's different, hockey's different, just the environment is different. And the NFL is not even worth talking about with regard to their Pro Bowl. But the NBA did a lot of things right. And I thought that one gathering of the greatest players, or many of the 75 greatest players, that's the ultimate photo op. Because let's face it, Joe, there's going to be guys that won't be back. We'll see. There's some guys we won't ever see again on that stage. And to see them all under one roof for that particular event means a lot. because you can tell kids about Bill Russell or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Billy Cunningham. There were so many guys that had so many great stories, and what makes the NBA the great league that it is.
Yeah, I saw Rodman was there. That made me happy to see him, because you don't see him popping up, and when you do, he's usually out in North Korea. So that's
no, he's doing commercials now. He's doing the gym, the fitness center.
Oh yeah,
he's got a couple
Planet
other
Fitness,
things going. And his young daughter is one of the better young soccer players for the women's team now. So we'll probably see and hear a little bit more from him as his daughter is now taking on the mantle of being a very accomplished soccer player.
I saw Jason Tatum, the picture he took with the Celtics legends. That was pretty cool.
Which, by the way, Lakers had more guys on the 75 all-time team than any other team. I just want to clear that up. Frank and anybody else. We have as many championships as the Celtics have, just in case somebody didn't know that. Not gonna have one this year, but I just want to clear that up. Frank.
Anything else? I mean, if we want to keep going on with something like this, I mean, my guy DeRozan is starting to make an even bigger push for that MVP that I said about 2 months ago and you laughed at.
You know what? I laughed because while as good as he is this year, I guarantee they're going to try and give it to somebody else. And I'm not saying I'm not a DeRozan fan. I remember him from his days when he was in Toronto, and he was a guy that was unsung then. But I think that when these writers have their minds made up, Embiid, Joker, a couple of other guys that I think have found their way in the mix that are recognizable, but it's hard to overlook him. I will say this. If the voting took place today, he'd be in the top 3 right now. I mean, because there's nothing he's not doing. He's on a very good team. He's in a large market. He's doing it the conventional way where he's not just a big 3 shooter. He's doing it the way the game used to be taught. He's a fundamental player, and that's something we just don't see a lot of. So he'll be in the mix. I just don't think he can win it.
One of the guys it's him, it's Jokic, it's Giannis are always
Giannis is in the mix,
in the mix there. I mean, LeBron still, as much as the Lakers are struggling, he's putting up his numbers for that. But LeBron also made headlines this past weekend, and it's been known, I think, for a while. I don't think it was a surprise. What he went on to say is that he kind of announced his retirement ahead of time, saying that whatever team Bronny is on, that's going to be the last team he plays for. He's going to play with his son for 1 year, and he's going to call it quits. You read some of these scouts, these draft scouts, and Bronny might not be good enough to play in the league. LeBron, though, seems to be pushing him to become the number 1 overall pick, because you know that if you draft him, you get a final year of LeBron.
Yeah, and you know what? I think some teams would take a deep breath on that. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, it sounds like a great idea, father and son playing in the league together. We don't know what the skill set of LeBron will be like in his final year. We know his son still has work to do to be considered a legitimate NBA player. I think they're going to try and dictate the draft. But if I'm a team, and what are we talking about, 23, 24? If I'm a team, I got to think long and hard about what this does for me cap-wise. You know, am I getting LeBron at a bargain? And who else do I have to bring with us? You know, because LeBron kind of has a crew of people who want to play with him, and I understand that. So I think there's a lot of other factors that come into play before that first team who has the first overall pick is going to take a young man who I think we would all admit the jury is still out on.
That, and knowing, I mean, you get that 1 year, you know, as an owner too, like as an owner, you're going to fill the stands all 41 games that year. You know that if you are bringing LeBron in for his farewell tour, people are going to show up. And if it's a team that he hasn't played on before, fans are going to be excited to go just say that they saw him no matter what. And I don't think we're going to get LeBron in 2 or 3 years. We're not going to see him just fall off so much that it's going to be, you know, the Willie Mays falling down in center field type stuff. But, you know, it's not going to be prime LeBron, the LeBron that you're getting. So but still, as an owner, if you can say you're going to fill the seats for all 41 games, all at the entire arena, then you have owner versus GM.
Well, here's a question though. It only makes sense for certain markets, and those markets already fill the seats. It's LA, it's Chicago, it's New York, it's Miami, it's Boston, it's Philly. Those places are already going to be full, no matter who you bring in there. I think that the key is, does it have an impact? And you can reduce it, because I don't think he'll ever play in New York because of James Dolan. If Dolan sells a team, that's where you end up. So you have to wonder, does it really mean that much to those reputable organizations? Because they already have fans showing up. So I'm not sure if it does that much more for you. Now, in some other smaller markets, mid-major markets, maybe that's something that you do. But why would you want to end your career in Oklahoma City? Or why would you want to end your career in, maybe Atlanta would be an interesting team. But, you just have some other teams that could probably, prosper from it. But I just don't know if it's something that's going to really make that much of a difference for those major market teams, because they're already making money.
This is Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura, and sponsored by the home loan expert Ryan Kelly, who I saw Ryan Kelly just ran the Austin Marathon the other day. I meant to text him yesterday and find out what his time was on that, but saw that he did that for another one of his great causes. So we'll have to talk with Ryan here very soon. Before we get off the basketball topic, quickly, college hoops. Juwan Howard the other day got into it in a post-game handshake with the head coach of Wisconsin, threw a punch, and has been the team, Michigan, the school, has announced he is suspended for the final 5 games, the final 5 regular season games. No suspension has been announced by the NCAA or the school when it comes to any kind of postseason play. But your thoughts on what we saw Juwan Howard do?
Well, it was a whole lot of wrong on everybody's part. I don't think anybody who was involved in that should come out smelling like a rose. You have 2 different coaches that had 2 different approaches late in the game. One team is up by a big margin, and they want to call a timeout because they want to reset themselves. And because he had his subs in. So my thing is, if your subs are that bad where you have to call a timeout, maybe they shouldn't even be on your team, or you're not coaching them up to be able to handle a situation like that. The other side of the coin is you're still pressing late in the game. You're still trying to battle even though you're down by 15. So you have that dynamic. The other issue is when somebody puts your hands on you like that, sometimes people react differently. I'm one of those people where if you touch me, we got a new game, especially in the heat of battle like that, where you just went through a very emotional game. And now you got a guy. Now, granted, coach might have been saying, I was just trying to get his attention. Well, you know what? If you can take a look at how things are unfolding, maybe you make a phone call after the game, or maybe you meet him in the hallway and say, hey, coach, I want to talk to you about what happened out there. There's a lot of different ways to do it. So that situation was really awkward. But again, you start putting your hands on people, no matter how harmless you might think it is, people do react. All right. Yeah. So the final thing is this assistant coach who got slapped, punched, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what he said. And I don't know if anybody else knows what he said, but obviously something inspired Howard to take a swing at him. And while I'm not sitting here condoning it, I don't think Juwan Howard should be as contrite as some people feel he should be. Hey, he made a mistake. There's no doubt about it. But again, coaches and players have gone through so much in their careers where they hear a lot of things and they don't respond. So I'd be interested to know what was the magic word that got him set off. Finally, with Juwan Howard, I've known Juwan Howard since he was in high school. Solidly earth person, competitive, but never disrespectful as a player, as a coach. He was a glue guy as a player in the NBA. He was a glue guy as a coach in the NBA. And he's been a pretty reputable guy in college. Now, I know he and Mark Turgeon had a little moment last year, but there's a lot of people that have moments with Mark Turgeon. I mean, so those things are going to happen in the heat of battle. But as I said at the outset, there's a whole lot of wrong to be spread out in this situation. I think the suspension was probably the right thing to do. And I think they have to figure out a way to move on, because you don't want to send a message to other coaches. But in my opinion, John, I'm surprised this hasn't happened before now. I really am, because of all the things that go on in how games are played and how coaches can be an asshole from time to time, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, you'll get people, you'll get guys in people's faces, but it never comes to the point of wanting to throw any kind of punches. And is that
not to say that they hadn't thought about doing it?
No, and that's it's sometimes you see benches clear in baseball, and it's just a bunch of guys screaming at each other, and nobody ever throws a punch. I feel like that's the same in this situation, that people want to talk big and try to be as loud as possible. But when it comes down to it, they never want to throw a punch. And if Juwan Howard wanted to throw a punch at anybody over a timeout, it should have been Chris Webber back in '93. So,
well, as Ken Wilson once said, the 3 most feared words in sports when there's a fight that could break out is "let them go." And I agree. There's a lot of guys who do a lot of chirping, but when you step back and say, "All right, have at it," all of a sudden it's like, "Hold me back." So it is what it is.
You find the big guys, you go, "Hold me back." Oh, if they weren't holding me back, I'd get after you.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Hey, good thing they're holding me back.
It's a good thing this ball boy is in front of me.
Hey, let's take another break. When we come back, we got more to get to here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan experts, and also driven by these guys at Munganess St. Louis Acura.
St. Louis Acura was the #1 Acura dealer in Missouri in 2021, and we were the 17th in the nation for Acura sales volume. We sell over 100 pre-owned vehicles monthly, and we service all of the makes and models that we sell. We are waiting for verification of our 30th Acura Precision Team Award, the only dealer in the nation with so many awards for customer satisfaction and dealership performance. We have 300 pre-owned vehicles in stock right now. St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.
The folks at Munganess St. Louis Acura and Munganess Alton Toyota, they provided you with that 2022 Highlander to take down to Jupiter, Florida, and that was the car that I just drove back this past weekend. Well, I guess yesterday went from Jacksonville all the way to Belleville in one trip yesterday. So
I don't know about you, Joe, and you had a chance to drive it. I know when I was here in Florida with it, the looks that people would give you on a vehicle like that, because A, they didn't realize it was that good looking. B, they realized the size that it has, where you can haul a lot of things, including kids around. But when they asked, I had 2 people ask me right off the hop, "Hey, how you like it?" I said, "I love it because of all the other things. You ought to sit inside and you can get a better idea of how it is." And I'll tell you, folks, if you haven't had a chance to check out the Highlander and some of the other vehicles that Munganess has available, and by the way, they do have vehicles available, you are missing out. So either go online or swing by either location, either in Alton or in Manchester, and just see the selection. And if you're not thinking about buying a car, maybe you want to sell your used car, and maybe you can get a good deal on that, because they are still looking for pre-owned cars. So there's a lot of options in front of you, but it all starts at Munganess.
I think I will be. I'll be out at Munganess Alton Toyota next Monday. That would be the 28th. I think that's where I'll be doing the show from when I take the car back there on Monday and see what else they have. I do know, if you haven't seen yet, the new 2023 Sequoias that are out there. So at the Daytona 500, Toyota, one of the major sponsors now with NASCAR, they had 6 Toyota cars running in the Daytona 500, but there was a whole section there of all of the brand new vehicles that they're going to be rolling out soon. And I asked if they had the new Sequoia out there. They did not. There is only one prototype so far that's out and about of the 2023 Sequoias. And the guy told me that it's going to be at the Chicago Auto Show coming up here in a few weeks. So if any of you out there listening or watching or are car fans and you're going up to the Chicago Auto Show, the 2023 Sequoia will be out there for you to see there.
By the way, Toyota, man, when you think about their involvement in sports and activities, you mentioned Daytona and all the cars they had in the race and how they sponsor that. How about they even sponsored Aaron Jackson from the Winter Olympics? Now you think about, they sponsored the best speed skater in the world. So they're all over the place, not to mention where they're at in the NBA and the NHL and some of the buildings that they're in, and certainly in baseball as well. Toyota, #1 dealer, #1 manufacturer in the world. And there's a reason why they are so successful.
Claibs, the Blues. I have not been able to keep up with them as much as I would like over the past few weeks. I know they had the very long delay, but they do have a game tonight against Philadelphia as they are out on the East Coast. That following their Canadian trip that they were on too.
Yeah, Blues are in Philadelphia. Philadelphia's not a very good hockey team. Matter of fact, they're terrible. They only have 5 guys that are plus in their whole lineup. They got a couple of guys that are over minus 20. Okay, that's hard to do. They just aren't very good. They've got a little bit of a fire sale going. I know Claude Giroux is waiting to get moved any day now. This is a game the Blues need to go in and let the Flyers know that they're the St. Louis Blues and the Philadelphia Flyers aren't going to be good enough. If you recall, this is where Jordan Bennington got his start in the National Hockey League in Philadelphia, and the rest was history. And I expect him to be in the net tonight. I haven't heard anything prior, but I think this would be an ideal opportunity for him to get some action and get him back on track.
Husso has started the last 4 games for the Blues and has actually started the last 6 of 7 games for them too. The last game that Bennington started was that game in New Jersey on February 10th, where they lost 7-4, and then the start before that was up in Calgary, where they lost 7-1. So it has not been a great run of things for Jordan Bennington, as you mentioned. Though maybe this is what he needs to kind of get back on track, is being in Philadelphia, where everything kind of started for him. But again, they've gotten 7 of their last 8 points when they played the Blackhawks, and then they went on to those 3 games up in Canada. So if you're going to be riding behind Husso right now, then you stick with him. If that's the guy that's going to get you to the playoffs and help you put you in the best position to win another Stanley Cup, keep riding him.
No, I disagree. I think we're too far out to have that conversation. What do you got? 35 games left. You got a lot of hockey in front of you. You're going to need Jordan Bennington somewhere between now and the end of the season, if not the playoffs. So to just go away from him right now, I don't think does his hockey club any good, because I don't need guys losing confidence this early in the season. And I say early with regard to the amount of games we still have left. That's a conversation I probably save for the last 2 weeks of the season in making that decision if he continues to struggle. So I'm going to give him a chance to go out and do himself good when I can. But Husso will get a bulk of the work until Bennington gets himself squared away, where then I can split it up.
Right now the Blues, tonight is their 50th game of the season. They have 64 points, so they're right in there. That second through 8 spot in the playoffs right now out in the West is kind of all up for grabs.
Yeah.
As far as seeding goes, because you drop below there, you get to that 9th, 10th, around there starts to be a pretty good drop off. So the Blues are right now set in a good spot for a playoff position. Nobody's catching the Avalanche right now. They're just going to run away with it and coast to that number.
You really think so, huh?
They're up 10 points on everybody else right now.
You know what? Have you noticed how this season changes? Yeah, I'll give you a good example. Calgary Flames were almost left for dead about a month ago. They won 9 in a row. Minnesota Wild, everybody buried them after the Winter Classic. What'd they do? They went out and won 9 in a row. They moved in front of the Blues. So I think that there's still plenty of time for Colorado to be caught. And I think the issue there will be, do they make another move to try and bolster their situation? Or if they start to feel the heat, do they burn themselves out for that number 1 spot and then all of a sudden find themselves in a first round opportunity for some team who's already in playoff mode to give them a run for their money? So I think this thing is far from over.
That game tonight, it is in Philadelphia. Claibs, over this past weekend, the hockey world lost a legend in Emile Francis. I know you wanted to talk about him a little bit and what he meant to the game.
Well, Emile Francis is one of the true builders of the National Hockey League. He was with the New York Rangers as a coach and a general manager in a very challenging era for the Rangers in the 70s, because they always found themselves playing against the Boston Bruins. They had Bobby Orr. He had Brad Park. And Brad Park In any other era would have been considered one of the greatest defensemen in his era. He just happened to be playing at the same time Bobby Orr did. He made some very interesting trades over the years. He got fired in New York. He found himself in St. Louis, where that was at the time where the Ralston Purina had bought the St. Louis Blues from the Solomons, and they had no clue about what they were doing. The arena, they changed the name to the Checker Dome. Emile Francis came in, developed the draft, drafted Bernie Federko, Brian Sutter, Wayne Babbage, Perry Turnbull, Mike Liu, all those guys. And as we saw, by the time the 1980s rolled around, they were one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. He was a guy who was a marketer. He understood the game. He understood people. Very honest gentleman, tough as barbed wire. And he's about this time. He's a Saskatchewan guy. So anybody who's from Saskatchewan, they always come with a pedigree of being rugged anyway. But one of the builders of the game. He was 95 years old. And as I mentioned, he played in the NHL. They call him the Cat because he was very quick from what I understand. I didn't see him play, despite what some people might think, but just a phenomenal person that this league will certainly can appreciate his contribution to the National Hockey League because he did everything, and we're going to miss him.
We will take a final break here, come back and wrap things up here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe right after this Ameren Minute.
The pandemic has been the ultimate game changer for many companies, and Ameren, Illinois is no exception. President and Chairman Richard Mark tells us how they've worked with their customers who may have been harshly impacted by COVID.
The pandemic has really caused some unprecedented changes and challenges for all industries. And, for us, since we provide that vital service, we understand customers have to have it. And so with the pandemic, many people were out of work, didn't know when they were going back to work. So some of the things that we tried to do was say, how do we help those customers along? How do we provide some money to make it available if they couldn't pay their bill? How could we maybe suspend late fees and late payments and those types of things? So what we try to do is work with our customers. We provided last year over $26 million in billing assistance for customers to help. And basically, if the customers couldn't pay, we didn't cut anyone off and tried to just understand what was going on in the communities. And I think that's really the real core and the basis of what we try to do.
Back here, Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura, sponsored by the home loan expert, Ryan Kelly. Find him online at thehomeloanexperts.com. We talked a little college hoops earlier as far as Juwan Howard is concerned, but do want to wrap it up. The Billikens tonight are at home. They play at 7 o'clock against St. Joe's, coming off a loss to Davidson, and losers of 3 of the last 4 games they played, now 5th in the Atlantic 10. They're going to need to win a few games, 4 games left in the regular season before they get into the Atlantic 10 tournament and get on another hot run if they're going to want to play in March.
Yeah, the Billikens have to win out and have to go at least 3 games deep into the conference tournament in order to have any sort of hope for the NCAA tournament. I don't think they have what it takes. I think they cost themselves too many games. And, Joe, it's one thing when you play in the conference and, conference games are tough, especially the road games. It's another thing when you can't win the conference games you need to at home. And I think when they look back on this season, they're going to realize they did more damage to themselves playing at home than they did on the road. So where they go from here, I don't know. The situation up the road in Columbia is even more dire because they're not even competitive in some of these games. They had one against Michigan State where they kind of gave it away, but they've been getting run out of too many buildings, and that's just because they don't have enough good players. Plain and simple, and I don't know how you fix it.
Do you think Kwanzaa lasts after this year?
Yeah, I think he does. I think he gets one more year. I think it really hinges on what he's going to be able to do recruiting-wise, and I don't know how you sell the program, because I don't know how many scholarships he's going to have available. You hope some guys go in the transfer portal, but at the end of the day, he's just got to get better players. You look at the guys that he brought in from the transfer side. None of these guys came in with, high standard credentials. they need a blue chipper or two in order to give this program more credibility than what they currently have. And how they do that is going to be the $64,000 question.
So yeah, they sit right now second to last in the SEC. Georgia 1-13.
I can't remember the last time a Missouri team in football or basketball was going to be second to last or last place. I can't remember when that took place. I'm sure it has. I just don't remember.
Has not been good. Illinois, on the other hand, we know they're in the tournament. You know the Illini are going to be playing in March. Just how far they're able to go, that'll remain to be.
I like their chances. You know, they play in a rugged conference. They know how to play defense. They've got size up front. They've got some perimeter scoring. I think Brad Underwood's deep enough where he can make this a very interesting run. I think Illinois is one of those teams, Joe, that the way they lose is them beating themselves. They're not going to be outclassed very many nights as far as the competition is concerned. So it's up to them being able to execute and just maintain the fundamentals. If they do that, they can make an interesting run.
They right now they're a half game behind the number one, getting the number one seed in the Big Ten tournament. They could get there, but I believe at the Big Ten with as many teams, is it the first 4 teams get buys? Yeah. Is that how it works in the Big Ten? The whole tournament set up for all these mass tournaments with how many teams are in there now. It's tough to keep up with. I
am not a big fan of conference tournaments. I think if you win your league, that should be the automatic bid. Conference tournaments don't prove to be as successful financially as you would think. I know they try to give some teams some extra opportunities, but I think they got it all wrong. The conference tournament champion shouldn't have an automatic bid. I think that if you bust your ass all those nights during the season, and it comes down to a 3 or 4 game weekend, and all of a sudden you get in because of that, no, I'm not buying that.
Claibs, what do you have coming up this week?
Well, we're hoping to visit with Ian O'Connor, who wrote a very interesting book about Mike Krzyzewski and his run at Duke. We're scheduled to visit with Marshall Falk, hopefully later in the week as well. I would love to report on some things that are going on baseball-wise. They're having the negotiations about a mile from where I'm sitting right now. Yep. And that's going to start up here in just a bit. So hopefully we'll get some action on that and get back to talking some baseball on a regular basis, because there's so much to address when it comes to the game. And when free agency rolls around, you may some teams that might want to look to make a trade. They got a lot to do in a very short period of time, provided they get things resolved this week.
Were you down there for a lot of it yesterday? Were you hanging out around there?
So you'll love this story. I'm on my way to go hit some golf balls. All right. I had some work I needed to do. It was President's Day. Couldn't reach some people. So I said, I go hit some golf balls. So as I'm driving down the street right next to Roger Dean, the parking lot, I see this tall guy with this gray beard. And I said, wait a minute, that's Tony Clark. So I pull over and I see him, and there's Goldschmidt, Max Scherzer. There may have been 12 to 15 players. They were standing on the parking lot holding court about, I guess, their final approach before they went in to meet the owners. And then all of a sudden, I saw some other writers pop up. I saw Jesse Rogers, some other gentlemen I didn't recognize. I saw our old buddy Matt Cessny, who used to work at Channel 4, who's now working here in West Palm Beach. He and I had a great visit. Hadn't seen him in a while. And so everybody just kind of stood out there. The TV cameras were out there. And all they did was take pictures of guys through the bars on the parking lot. They went in and they just sat there for the next 5.5 hours.
Hopefully.
That's how starved we are for information these days.
Just watching it, I don't know, I've read the reports from that. I know hearing that there was a 5-hour negotiation makes me feel a lot better than when you hear that there's a 15-minute negotiation. That's true. That they're actually sitting in there and they're actually trying to bang out some details. You said that they're getting ready to meet again here soon today. I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, they're already underway, as a matter of fact. I'm sorry. Yeah, they started at noon Central. They started at 1 out here.
Okay. Well, hey, if they're still going, that means it wasn't another 15-minute meeting. So hopefully.
Well, it's my understanding that the players were going to make a counter to the proposals from yesterday, for one thing. And they got a lot of things to go through, man. I know we talk about the main issues of arbitration and the pool and things of that nature, but I think there's some other issues that are going to come into play. For instance, media access. What's that going to look like from this point on? I know a lot of people think we'll never go in another clubhouse, which is fine.
I thought they already said that we were getting to go in the clubhouse this year.
I haven't heard that.
I thought they came out with that a few weeks ago.
Well, if they did, that was maybe a day
you can go, but you can go wherever the hell you want to go when it comes to Busch Stadium. It's for people, media like me, that I need to hear if I have access or not. You just go wherever the hell you want.
I don't take advantage of that. I try to abide by the same rules, but I think there's some other things behind the scenes that have been concerns of the players and owners that they probably need to address. How do we look going forward with COVID? Now, a lot of people have kind of rescinded a lot of things with regard to mask and regulations in certain areas of the country. But I think they probably are going to have a plan in place in the event if there's some sort of health stoppage. So a lot of things still to be addressed, and hopefully we will get closer to a resolution here. And I guarantee you, Joe, once this resolution takes place, be ready to hear the word expansion. It's just a matter of time. And I think the two hot cities would be Nashville and Las Vegas. That's why you are now hearing, apparently in Oakland, they're talking about perhaps building a stadium now. I know in Tampa, there's been a little bit more discussion because the league's not going to let either one of those cities move to Nashville or Las Vegas, because that's too big and too rich of a market to bring in new blood and new ownership to those teams.
Yeah. We will we'll wait and see. Hopefully some good news coming out of the meetings today or as the week goes on. That's going to do it for our show today here on claibsonline.com. He's Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick. This has been Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura, and sponsored by this man.
You know, the only thing faster than this supersonic golf cart are the closing times at thehomeloanexpert.com. Mortgage rates are in the twos, and we have a 21-day closing guarantee. Apply online today at thehomeloanexpert.com.